Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. I'm Catherine Mattice. It's been a while since I've done a LinkedIn Live show. I'm doing it because I have a new book, Navigating a Toxic Workplace for Dummies. It just came out a couple weeks ago. And Kayla O'Neill is here with me. Kayla is my buddy and friend. She's the senior marketing webinar producer. It's a long title for Paycor webinars. And so, Kayla, we've known each other, gosh, I feel like 3 or 4 years now, maybe
even more than that, I think.
We talk to each other once a month when I do a webinar for Paycor. So thank you for being here.
Yes, thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here. This is my first LinkedIn Live, so I'm getting the feel of it. It's a different platform than normal, so I'm into it.
Yeah, woo woo. Yeah, we're webinar experts. We got this. So I invited Kayla and Paycor to, of course, purchase some of my books, which they graciously agreed to do. And I'll just say here at the front, I'm doing one of my many webinars for Paycor on the 10th, so in 2 days. And that topic is on total rewards and culture and how all of those things tie together. So we're going to do a raffle there, and Paycor has been so kind to offer up some books to people who attend. So thank you for that, and we'll put the link in. So Kayla, I know, I invited you here just to talk with me about my book. I know you have some questions after you've gotten a hold of it, and yeah, let's have a chat.
Yeah, let's do it. Yes, I do have a few questions here, if you don't mind answering. And of course, if anyone else has any questions, go ahead and put it in the comments. So first question for you, Catherine. How did you balance practical advice with research and stats and your real life experiences in this book?
That is a good question. I'll say that I was really thrilled when Wiley told me I didn't have to go and reference every single tidbit of information like you might have to do in an academic paper, because there's a lot of stuff that's, just sort of common knowledge in my head. And so there is a lot of research in there, just from things I've read over the years. I mean, I've been talking about bullying for about 20 years now. So I've read thousands of research articles. And then, taking what I know from the research and what I've experienced was fairly easy, just because this is my life. I mean, all day, every day, I'm helping companies navigate and turn around toxic workplaces and toxic behavior. So the Dummies book was really a labor of love. It was like everything in my head I got to put out on paper, and it was a good exercise.
Yeah, I'd say so. And it's nice to be able to share this real life experience that you have. So thank you for doing it.
Yeah.
So another question for you here, how can HR professionals, because we may have a few on here on the LinkedIn Live, but how can HR professionals or even team leaders begin to assess whether toxicity is present on their own teams? How can I do that?
Yeah, I think one thing that managers need to learn, if someone says they're reading the book on Kindle, well, thank you. You'll have to let us know what you think about it. I think this is a training that a lot of managers don't get, which is really building relationships with their teams so that they can sort of sense when something is amiss.
Right.
And then how do you go about doing that? So I think some of it's just really being observant. Is somebody who used to be talkative seeming to back away from the team or be less talkative or less innovative? Is somebody going from happy-go-lucky emails to maybe being more curt? So, just kind of recognizing changes in people, and maybe it has nothing to do with the workplace,
Right.
but if you're a good manager and you have those relationships, then you can say, hey, Kayla, I feel like something's going on. Are you all right? And see what you say, and maybe we can work through it. And then there's kind of the more typical answers: turnover, people calling in sick, people giving you the sense that they're burned out. The problem is that toxicity can be very insidious, and we don't necessarily know that it's happening. We all have different tolerance levels for toxicity too, depending on how we grew up and our experiences in life. So I think the main answer is it's important for managers to have relationships so they can just gauge where people are at. There's some other things that go on in workplaces just to always be aware of. Cliques, are bad. If you see cliques forming, try to get in there and break them up as soon as possible. And there's also other risk factors. For example, when you have a lot of tenured employees who have been there for a long time, and then you hire in a new person, that's a really great example of facilitating the opportunity for bad stuff to happen, because those long-term employees, us versus them. And similar, if you have one underrepresented person and everybody else is the same. So just those sort of cliquish group mob mentality kind of things are happening. So my short answer is pay attention.
Yeah, check the vibe. Do a vibe check here and there. See how people are feeling. Yeah. It could be also simple too. And sometimes I think people will kind of wait till it's too late. So just be aware. That awareness is key too. And this is a question here that I'm going to ask you that we get so much, especially on a lot of our webinars. This is like number one question. But how should organizations respond when the toxic behavior is coming from someone higher up or in a leadership role?
Yeah. So, it's important for leaders, as we know, to model and exemplify the behavior that organizations want. And often organizations get focused on results and they pay less attention to behavior. And that's a dangerous place to be. So that's something to sort of check first if you're seeing a leader kind of misbehaving. A lot of times we let that go because they get results. And so the organization has to decide that how you get things done is just as important as what you get done. And then that's step number one, is just kind of taking that stance that leader, not a leader, results, whoever you are, whatever you're doing, if you're not doing it in a respectful way, then that's an issue and that's a performance problem. So that's step one. From there, leaders who engage in toxic behavior do often get rewarded for their results. And so you let that go on for a long period of time. And 5 years later, it's like, okay, you can't be toxic anymore. And it's like, well, why? I've been doing, what am I doing wrong? I don't get it.
Right.
And so nipping it in the bud as soon as it's happening is also important. And just giving some clear examples of how they're behaving and ideas on how to change. Now, on the other end of the spectrum, when you have that person who's been toxic for 5 years, and now it's like, what do you mean I'm toxic, or I need to change? I don't get it. It's really easy for them to justify and deny their behavior because they've been doing it for so long and they've been getting rewarded. So the key here, that script, is to talk about perceptions. So instead of, Kayla, at the meeting yesterday, you did this and we need to talk about it and you need to change. Instead, it's, look, the perception in the meeting yesterday was that you were being abrasive, or that you yelled, or that when you go like this, that's hard on people. They don't, that's scary for them. And then people, when they justify and deny, well, they're being sensitive, I needed to do it to make a point, whatever. Then you say, well, look, that perception of the group isn't working for your leadership and you've got to make a change. So I think in HR, we do tend to get caught up in the facts and try to prove that something happened, because that's the world we live in, compliance, investigations. But it's okay to operate in perceptions. And then you say, the fact is, your team is feeling like you're too abrasive, or that you're communicating in a way that's not working. And that one fact has to change. I'm not here to argue with you about what happened in the meeting yesterday. I'm here to talk with you about this perception and how you can change it. So that's my answer.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great answer too. Perception, it's not necessarily this is the way that you are just because somebody said that you were this way. It's how are you being perceived? What sort of behaviors are you having? And then having that reward for the good behaviors, I think is super important too. And will
Yes.
definitely increase engagement as well. Somebody just mentioned here, let's see, is it Siobhan? In her experience, I don't accept that's just how they are as a reason just to excuse behavior. And that disrupts team culture or accountability for sure. So yes.
Yeah, I'll add to that example. Thanks for bringing that up. One person I coached, the one who did this, that was one of her behaviors.
Oh no.
Yes. Like we need to, yeah, don't do that. But that it was interesting because the CHRO, I just remember in our first meeting, she's like, everyone says like, well, she's just really passionate, and I'm done with that. I don't want to hear if she's just passionate. Like if she gets great results, but passion, you can be passionate without like scaring people with your body language.
Body language, yeah, for sure. Yeah, you don't want to terrify people in a meeting first thing in the morning. So no. Okay. Let's see. So another question for you, Catherine. So, you've worked with Fortune 500 companies and even small businesses as well. Do the root causes of toxicity differ across organizations or even industries?
I'm going to say no.
Okay.
So that, when I first started studying workplace bullying and toxic behaviors in graduate school, that was actually the thing that was super fascinating to me, is that as random and gray area as human behavior can be, that this particular social phenomenon, like many, unfolds in a very similar way no matter what. And so, there's all these research articles with surveys and all this stuff from academics. And like, I just remember reading these articles, like, how fascinating is that it always has this sort of recipe where the boss isn't able to hold this person accountable. That person's getting results and therefore is allowed to act this way. Everybody else sort of allows it by not speaking up. And it was kind of fascinating to me. And I know, a lot of times when we talk to clients, it's like, well, our industry is different or unique. I'm like, I know you think that, but not when it comes to human behavior. The reason people engage in toxic behavior is the same reason every time. And it's that they feel they're lacking some self-esteem. And so they're using it to, or they're, what's the word? Making up for that feeling of low
overcompensating
by overcompensating.
Projection, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Somebody mentioned that we should talk about our natural animal instincts and how it relates to, so like survival, power, control. I mean, I think everybody can say that's on this call here that they know someone to where they were, had bad behavior, doing whatever they wanted to do, but just because they were doing well at what they were doing, everything kind of was slid under the rug.
Mm-hmm.
But, how important is it to kind of voice your concerns? And how would you say somebody could do that, especially if they're not in a leadership role?
How could someone voice their concerns if they're feeling they're at the receiving end of toxic behavior?
Yep.
That's a great question. And the sooner you nip it in the bud, the better. So here, when you think about human communication sort of millisecond by millisecond, which we don't often unless there's miscommunication, what happens is that very first instance, let's say I just got a job at Paycor and I'm there with you, Kayla, and day 4, I snip at you or make a snide comment and you don't say anything about it and you let it slide and you're thinking, oh, she's probably stressed out. It's a new job. Or, I understand she was frustrated because she didn't understand or whatever. That has now given me permission, probably subconsciously, you probably don't even notice it. Like, oh, I can push on Kayla a little bit. And then, maybe 4 weeks later, I do something else. And and that's how it's insidious is that rarely do people come in hot and just start being a bully day one. It's like, And it can start to occur over several years where it's like
Right.
more and more I get more that way. And or it could happen, within 3 months. It's like, gosh, that new person's a bully. But so the sooner you nip it in the bud, the better. And then the other thing is have some conversations with them about it early on. And I know that's hard. It takes some courage to tell someone, I don't like the way you treat me. But that's important too. And I think especially, and I'll be curious, my HR folks on here, if you agree, I feel like if I'm in internal HR, which I used to be, and someone comes to me and says, this person's mistreating me, what do I do? In HR, that's not really giving me a business case to help you. And I can maybe give you some coaching, but there isn't much else I can do. If someone comes to me and says, I'm noticing that this person's engaging in these behaviors. Here's specific examples. I've noticed that it caused someone to cry. I noticed that after meetings, our team spends some time gossiping and chit-chatting about the meeting we were just in. So we're wasting time, and really help HR make that business case to put a stop to it, because in a lot of cases, HR then has to go to the boss who holds the purse strings and say, we have a situation and I need permission to deal with it. And here's what's going on. It doesn't equip HR if I just go and say, I'm feeling this way and it hurts my feelings, right? Because they can't present that to the C-suite. So you gotta set HR up for success.
Got it. Help them help you sort of situation there.
Yeah. And of course, my book has there's a whole chapter on like how to use HR, what they need from you, and that just putting on my HR hat to kind of think what I would need if I was in HR internally. So, and I wanted to circle back to this comment about the survival and power and control. I love that, because that's exactly what I use when I'm coaching people who engage in bullying. Literally coaching session number 1, we talk about fight or flight. And I lean on that all throughout the coaching program, so that it's like, just to give you an example, one individual I coached, he was fun. I wasn't able to, he was one of mine, I was not able to help him really. I think he was too egotistical. But one of his themes was that he is egotistical, which interestingly, I don't get that theme a lot when I interview before I start coaching. Usually it's like my way or the highway, aggressive communication, tone, harsh and all this stuff. But he had egotistical. And some of the comments was that he would really just hammer people like, I'm so cool. Over the weekend, I did all these amazing things, and like, oh, you're a loser because you binged Netflix all weekend or whatever, and he didn't.
Feel attacked.
I know. I'm like, hey, I binge watch sometimes too. And he wasn't saying it so, curtly, but that's ultimately what was going on. I remember one of the comments was like, I don't care if your cousin played basketball with Justin Timberlake.
That's amazing, but not important right now.
So he did that a lot. So it was funny. So one of our coaching sessions, he said, we were talking about building rapport and stuff. And he says, well, at the Monday morning meeting, I always start off with, how was everyone's weekend? What did you do? And nobody says anything. They're all fairly silent. And so then my question as the coach is, are they fighting or fleeing when they're not saying anything in a meeting? Well, they're fleeing. They're choosing not to engage with you. Well, why is that? And then he says, I don't know. I kid you not. He said, I don't know. They're embarrassed of their activities. They know they can't keep up with me. They know I don't like it when people binge watch Netflix. I think that's lazy. And I'm like, okay, well, do you think they don't speak up because that's how you're making them feel? And it was like, oh, I guess I probably need to be more humble. But so it's this whole like, the person I'm coaching, you're fighting for people to think you're cool by like coming at people like that, and they're fleeing. So it's just kind of a fascinating scenario of like, everything is fight or flight.
Absolutely. I agree with that too. And, it's almost like insecurity almost
Yeah.
is just kind of manifesting within this person too, so that it's always like they kind of have the higher ground and they're super cool and everyone else isn't. It's sort of like a bad high school environment.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's why they get such great results. They're fighting for people to like think they're great and for people to acknowledge them. And I mean, it's that's what they're doing. They're fighting for people to acknowledge their value. And of course, that comes from who knows what, from their experience. And I'm not a therapist, so we don't get into that. My job is to help them recognize that that's what's happening with their communication and to change how they communicate. But that's where it comes from.
Yeah, we're getting a lot of good comments too here.
Yeah, let's see what we got. Lots of people saying they bought the book already. So thank you for doing that. Please write a review on Amazon when you're done. Let's see. Once you actually do a climate check, ask the right questions. Yes, Siobhan, thank you. Create safety, and then you realize how many folks have been silently carrying the weight. That's a great point. Engagement surveys don't measure climate, but climate assessments do. So Asim says, I don't think there's any organization that doesn't have a full-blown toxic culture, or partially at least. I agree with you, Asim. I think there's always going to be pockets. People are people. We're going to misstep and be uncivil sometimes. It's just ultimately, I always say it's how you recover. That's just like it's not that you fell. It's how you get back up, right? And that's my idea of a great work environment, is that we are going to misstep and hurt each other's feelings. But if I can say, Kayla, yesterday that hurt my feelings. Can we talk about it? And we can work through it. I mean, that's a relationship, right?
Yeah. And you can hold yourself accountable too. Everybody makes mistakes. Nobody's perfect. But yeah, you can certainly get back up and redeem yourself, if you will, as well. Let's see. Yeah, we've got a lot. Thank you all for all these comments.
I love it. Kelly says, I bought your book and I'm supporting you. Thank you, Kelly. Bullying isn't illegal, and I'm in an extremely toxic environment where tough skin is the guidance given for any normal reaction. Public shaming is just the beginning. Yeah, that's Kelly. Thank you for sharing that. And that is a thing, that bullying is not unlawful. And for those HR professionals who get really focused on compliance or the facts, it can be hard for them to digest. And that's a problem. And having workplace bullying be unlawful would be helpful, but harassment's unlawful, and how many harassment complaints are there? So it's not going to put a stop to it.
No, certainly won't.
I hope, Kelly, that you, do what you need to do to protect yourself. That's the key. If you feel it getting to you, it's time to go. And someone says bullying becomes harassment quickly. Indeed, it can be a crossover. I always say there's no difference between bullying and harassment. It's just who you aim it at. So the loophole is, if you want to harass, just harass everyone, and then you'll be good. This LinkedIn Live is going the wrong direction.
A great advice there. Yeah, if you're gonna do it. You know what I mean?
Go all in.
But don't, y'all. Don't, please. So okay, one more question here. So Catherine, can you give us a sneak peek at one of maybe your favorite tools or frameworks from the book?
Sorry, I'm still laughing about your reaction last night. Well, it was hard to pick because there are lots. I would say, let's see, what chapter am I in? Page 96 for those of you. There's this whole team exercises in here, so it's not really a model, but the thing about culture is that it lives in people's heads, right? So I understand culture just by what I think about it and what I think about the interactions I have. And so really and truly, if organizations do nothing else, if managers could just talk about civility regularly, that in and of itself would make a big difference, because people would start to figure out that those are the rules, that we need to be civil and all of that. So anyway, what I have is a series of exercises in the book for managers to talk with their team. So one of them, for example, is talking about how language might affect people. And Disneyland is a great example. You know, you don't go on lunch break, you go backstage and you're a cast member, not an employee. And language is important. So are there words that you're using in your organization that are causing a divide without you even realizing it? You know, that's why a lot of organizations, instead of employees, they say team members. Thinking about letting people go, can we make them an alumni, which has a different connotation than a terminated employee?
That's good.
And if you want people to be an alumni, that changes your offboarding process, right? Versus if you're thinking about them as being terminated. So that's a really great example of how language influences our actions. So that's one of the exercises in here. Another one is building a team vision for respect. And so that's one of my favorite things, but there's lots of self-assessments and just activities and things you can do to, you know, assess your situation and get some self-awareness and give you some tools to manage it, no matter your level. The book is written for employees, managers, HR, and top leaders. And so, yeah, I'm very proud of it. In fact, I hugged it when I first got it in the mail.
That's a lot of your brain is in there, you know, a lot of your history is in there too. So yeah,
it's got lots of great stories too. So good ones and bad ones.
Yeah. And that's what shapes our lives, right? And I think not even just workplace bullying, but even just in your personal relationships too. I think a lot of these tips and tricks in the book can also translate over to personal relationships as well.
Really true. It's very true. Yeah.
So it looks like we've got some winners. So congrats to Sagar Lankani and Siobhan Palador. Excuse me if I didn't say the name right there, but keep an eye out for LinkedIn message so that you can claim your copy. Congratulations.
Thank you, Jenny, for managing that for us. And then again, I have a webinar with Paycor in 2 days. It's on July 10 at 11 a.m. Pacific time. And it's called Integrating Total Rewards into Your Culture for Better Retention and Engagement. So we'll see you there, and we'll give some more books away there.
All right, awesome. I'm going to actually try to put that in the chat too, or in the comments here, so that you all can register.
I think Jenny put it in there for us too. Thank you, Jenny. Good.
Yes.
I also, just real quick, I do want to give a shout out to Jenny. She's on here. Jenny Ariola, she is my marketing manager, and she puts everything together for me. And she's really a big key component of my LinkedIn activities. And I am positive that, you know, Wiley found me on LinkedIn, and I'm not sure they would have if it hadn't been for all of her good work there. So thank you, Jenny. I really think you're a big part of how this book came to be. So I just wanted to put that out there. And thank you, Kayla, for letting me be your partner all these years, and for many more years to come.
Yes, please. Yes, I received that. Yes. And shout out to Jenny too. She's wonderful. I always love working with the both of you. And it's literally on a monthly basis. I think it's been close to like 6 years, Catherine. So
wow.
It's been a while. Yeah, it's been a while. Time moves fast when you're having fun. But
let's see, 6 years times 12. I don't do math, but that's a lot of webinars.
That's a lot of webinars, y'all. You can always check out Catherine's work too on civilitypartners.com, right?
Yes, thank you.
And is there anything with Civility Partners? Is there some things that you all can provide, maybe some of the folks here today, as far as what services you provide?
Yeah, thanks for asking. So Civility Partners, I say we do 4 things. We do climate assessments, which includes engagement and a lot of other things too. And then we do, we like to work with the organization to use that data and create plans for change, and often help implement some of what's on that plan. Certainly we do lots of training programs on all sorts of topics. And then we specialize in coaching leaders accused of bullying. So those are the things that we do. And really, we're OD consultants. We take a culture from point A to point B, and don't wait to use us when something bad has happened. Use us.
Say that again.
Don't wait for what to blow up in your face. Use us, or when we're culture consultants, and we'd love to help. And Kayla, I feel like you've got to tell us about your webinar series, since you spent some time with me today.
Oh, I almost feel like I'm in HR at this point. No, but no, we've got tons of content that we produce. We do between 3 to 5 sessions a week. And we always love having Catherine on the program, but you can go to paycor.com and just go to resources at the top and click on webinars, and you'll see everything there. We've got live sessions, on-demand sessions, you name it, we've got it. We try to talk about a lot of different topics, but as you know, culture is extremely important. So we want to make sure that you are happy every day. So that's the goal.
Yes. And well, thank you very much, Kayla, for this. And thank you all for joining us. And I see one of my BFFs, Melanie, is on. Thank you, Melanie, for supporting me. And yeah, we need to go back to doing LinkedIn Live. So I think I'll do more of these. So thank you all. Thank you, Kayla. And I'll see you all on in 2 days on my webinar.
Sounds good. Thanks, y'all.
Thanks, y'all.